Today we're doing something a little bit different. Brian's brother has his Passat R-Line.
Yes.
What year is it?
2017.
Today we're going to be installing some lowering springs and some 20-inch Rotiform KPSs.
Yes.
So just kind of like a little OEM plus
Keep it
addition.
clean and simple. He's not huge into cars, but he wants it to look. He's kind of getting there, trying to get him on track.
Like wants it to be different.
Yeah, different
So,
to look clean.
Gonna do like a little something different than the norm, kind of something a little mild than what usually happens on here, but we're gonna be showing you exactly how to install lowering springs on your 2017 Passat. And it's all coming up today on this thing.
Stop it.
No.
Stop.
This is the intro. I'm gonna use it.
He always points.
All right, so just give us a baseline on where we're at. I'm gonna measure the fender to ground, just this little, starting like right here. Just to see where we're starting at. We're at 28. And then after installing the H&R Sport Springs, we'll be rechecking this and seeing how much we got done. But anyways, after this, all you gotta do is jack the car up and pull the wheels off, and then start getting the suspension out.
So to pull the struts out of the car on this, you're gonna have a wheel speed sensor clip. You're gonna make sure you pull it out of there. Brake line, end link from right here. And then you're gonna have your pinch bolt. And then you're gonna need the spreader tool that's necessary for it. And then you have 3 bolts up top underneath this windshield tray. So you just basically pull the trim in right there.
Alright, so as you can see, we deviated slightly from the plan. When it's stock suspension, it is a lot harder to get the struts out. So to just make it easier, spend the extra 2 minutes, like Brian told me we would have to do, and remove the axle nut and the 3 bolts holding on the lower control arm, and you can just remove the hub from the axle, and then the hub will just drop down. Make sure you set it on something so you don't stretch the brake lines out, and then the whole thing just pops out. And now, for those of you saying, oh, why don't you just get some spring, whatever. Okay, so you get these and you try putting these up in there and taking it out. What we can do now is use these to hold the spring on to get the strut mount off. So that's what we're going to be tackling next. All right, spring separate, So we're just gonna reuse this boot situation and the bump stop and get the springs out of the box wherever. Oh, they're over there, I see them.
We went to the H&R Sport Springs because he doesn't really need coilovers. He just wants a little bit of drop. Get rid of some of that wheel gap, and we source these through Cedar Performance.
Thank you to Cedar Performance for helping us get squared away on getting these lowering springs for his brother's car.
And the wheels.
Oh, and the wheels.
And Johnny's.
They're a Rotiform dealer as well. I mean, they're a dealer for like pretty much anything.
Just contact me.
We're gonna source this Johnny onto this jobber and do some jobbers up here. And quick tip when installing springs, there is a little notch. There's a notch right here, and you need to rotate the spring so it comes in contact with that notch. So don't mess that up. Don't just set the spring in there. There's a little notch.
You don't want to be like that, and it's not going to seat right.
Yeah.
Here, it's seated flat, so.
Exactly. A little notch in there to stop the end of the coil, and that's how you know you're like exactly where you need to be. There are some arrows on these little guys that point front to back, and so you need to make sure they're oriented that way in the car, where the arrows are pointing front and back. Inserts are just in the rubber.
Plus 90.
Or it's at least a lot easier.
Stance tip. 1, roll your fenders. But either they come rolled now, which it might be because they come with 19, so they might have needed it, or somebody rolled these.
Yeah, like look at this.
Like the transition and all, it's definitely been rolled. But stance tip. Torque screw, get rid of it, that's there.
Yeah, so just
Fix
take
that
this,
rubbing issue.
take
Right.
this screw out, and then tuck this little plastic bit behind the tab, and then just fold the metal tab up with your hand. And that's like 80% of the rubbing when it comes to mildly lowered vehicles. So obviously don't forget to torque down your wheel lugs, and then once it's on the ground, we'll finish tightening this axle bolt all the way. But I'm gonna go ahead and put the camera down so we can bang out the other side. It's literally the exact same steps. So you just take off those bolts up top. There's 3 of them. Disconnect this clip so the brake line can move up. You just move a little screwdriver. Just pull this guy out. Take off the sway bar end link. Okay. Drop this pinch bolt. Pull out this axle nut right here. Pull out this axle nut, and then do these 3 lower control arm bolts for the ball joint down there. So I'll put the camera down, help out Brian, and I will check back in with you guys when we get to the back of the car. Welcome to the back of the car, where life gets much easier for you if you're doing a spring install. Pull the wheel off. You don't want it to be that high off the ground because you're going to want to use a jack to help you with this control arm, like holding it up in place. This is the spring, and the shock is separate on most Volkswagens, honestly. And All you're gonna do is remove this bolt with a jack supporting this. You're gonna pull this bolt out and then lower this control arm down, and then you can pull this spring out. And literally that's it. So we're going to hook that up real quick and I'll show you what's what. That should not have slipped off. That's literally all it is. It's just that easy. Right, so we're gonna reuse, now that you got your new spring, your fancy schmancy H&R jobby, you're gonna reuse your old upper spring seat pad. Thing to pay attention to, just like in the front, there is a notch right there that you gotta have your spring sit on. So you wanna get your spring in there and then rotate it around until you hear it sit on that, or feel it sit on that spring. That's all there is to it. And then we're gonna use the jack to raise this bad boy back up and get that bolt in there and torque that jobby. We're gonna do the same thing to the other side, slap these wheels back on, and I'll give you an idea of what it's gonna look like, but it's also snowing outside, so we don't wanna drive around the block to let it settle, so it's snowing. All right, so I know this has been kind of a down and dirty install, and it was a really quick video, but you should get the idea that this really isn't that hard. No, you don't need a lift, you only really need jack stands, but let's take a look at how much this car's been lowered without the suspension settling yet. So we're at 27 inches in the front, and in the back we're at 28.5 before, and now we're at 27.5. I bet that it's gonna settle about another 1/4 to a 1/2 inch. So just to give you an idea of what it looks like, this is gonna be like what you're gonna see. Just a little bit lower after you drive. Oh, 2 things, real quick. Don't forget to tighten your lug bolts. Don't forget to recheck your torque after like your first drive. And then after like 200 miles and the suspension settles, you're gonna wanna get in alignment. So, I mean, that's really all there is to it though. So now we're done, and stick around for a couple beauty shots, but otherwise we'll see you guys next time.